So this week, children have been writing letters to President-elect Obama, and I wanted to share one with you very briefly. And the letter came to President Obama and it said, "You don't look panicked. You should be panicked. Why aren't you panicked?" And I thought that was a wonderful metaphor, if you will, for what people are feeling and where we need to go with our consciousness. How we need to know that, for instance, if Barack Obama was very involved in one particular detail, any detail, choose of the thousands and thousands of challenges that he faces, if he got focused on one and became so depressed by it, can you imagine what he would feel like, or the presence that he would bring to the presidency? And it's such a great lesson for us to know that we must continue to be in the bigger picture, to look at the bigger concept of what's happening in the world. And to know that indeed, and I chose this topic on purpose, that we are having an adventure. That we are having an adventure in spirit, and regardless of what the conditions appear to be like in the world, what I know is that we move forward with absolute certainty that there is something wonderful and joyous and positive about every step that we take. So as I move forward today, please keep that in mind and know that that's what I feel in my heart, and I invite you to consider that possibility as well. Dr. Holmes said, "There is a universal mind, spirit, intelligence that is the origin of everything. It is first cause. It is God. This universal life and energy finds an outlet in, through, and all that is energized and through everything that lives. There is one life back of everything that lives. There is one energy back of all that is energized." So if we think about that, then we realize that there is a oneness. There is something that unifies us, that keeps us all together. So I brought a couple of pictures back to share with you. And this is a picture of cacti, actually. And I thought it was a great way to begin the concept of realizing that even though we know there's this unifying energy, this unifying awareness, there is an amazing feeling that we feel separate from. And I use the cactus because it makes us feel separate, doesn't it? You don't want to jump in there. I mean, it's prickly and scary and sharp and all of that. And this is how we see life. We see ourselves as separate from what life is and what life has to offer, when really we are unable to understand that we are part and parcel of that same energy. Now, it's difficult for us to see ourselves strictly from a scientific perspective, to think of ourselves as energy or as a bag of chemicals. I mean, we are. I used to know the exact proportions of all the chemicals that we're made up of, but we don't think of ourselves that way. We think of ourselves as living, being humans. And part of the problem with that is that we try to anthropomorphize or make some power out there into human form. And so when we do that, we create a sense of separation, thinking that there's a power out there that somehow has power over us, when indeed we are part of a universal, unified energy that moves through everything in the same way. We have intelligence. We have a mystical awareness within us that gives us a sense of empowerment. And when we let go of the sense of separation, like feeling separate from cactus or cacti, then what happens is we begin to see that sense of unified awareness. And later on, I'm going to actually share some other things with you, but later. Denise knows when. So what we're after is integrating this idea that somehow we're separate from when we are really truly not. And it's about a dance. It's about a dance between what we know or feel from our senses and what is the mystical part of us, that part of us, the part of our brain that doesn't really understand that we are separate. There's a part of our brain that knows that we're a part of this allness, a part of this unity. And it's difficult for us to tap into that part of our brain, that part of our understanding. It actually is a part of the right brain, which is that creative aspect. And we get there when we involve ourselves with things like art or music or beauty. When we feel an overwhelming sense of love, we connect with that sense of that right brain. And when we do that, for moments, we feel one. We don't feel separate from. We feel one, and we feel in the flow. Now, I created a little line a few years back, and I want to share it with you, because it's about the microcosm and the macrocosm. Each of us is the microcosm. And actually, those cacti are a microcosm also. And the microcosm exists in such, there's just an infinity of forms and ways in which the microcosms exist. There's tons of us, tons of microcosms all over the place, but only one macrocosm, only one whole. And we are the microcosms, a part of that macrocosm. So here's the line I created. In the microcosm, we perceive ourselves as pawns. In a macrocosm, we're able to rise above and see the whole chessboard. We can see the whole thing. We can see all the moves that are being made, and when we do that, we don't get upset with the other little moves that the other little pawns make. Because when we're a pawn, aren't we just a little nervous about what the other little pawns are going to do? But when we're in that bigger picture, when we're looking at the whole chessboard, we don't get so concerned about those tiny little moves that the other people make. So part of what enables us to be in that elegant dance, to really get that understanding of how to see from the macrocosm perspective, we have to provide our human minds with some scientific logic, to know that there is a scientific reason for us to be a part of the energy, because our mind doesn't understand that. It still thinks it's separate. Now, there's a man named Bruce Lipton who wrote the book called The Biology of Belief. And what he says is that belief controls our biology. Belief controls our biology. So how we believe controls the way we experience the world. So science is pointing to how we can become aware and live in the spiritual world. Dr. Holmes said many, many years ago, eventually science and religion will walk hand in hand. At some point, we will become one. Our minds will bring these two things together. So Lipton discusses this, and many physicists are discussing these things right now. And one of the things that is being said is this: atoms are made out of invisible energy, not visible matter. Matter can be simultaneously defined as a solid particle and at the same time, an immaterial force field or a wave. So matter is not really something you can see, but it is. But it isn't really. It's a tendency. It's a tendency to become something. He says the universe is one indivisible dynamic whole in which energy and matter are so deeply entangled, it is impossible to consider them as invisible elements. So what we know is that at the subatomic level, matter does not exist. At the subatomic level of where that cactus from, it didn't exist. At the subatomic level from where we came, we didn't exist. Only the tendency of us exists. So you're a tendency. You're a possibility. And when you think about that from that perspective, what you know is that your next moment can be created out of intention, out of your belief. Your next moment, your next experience can be created from how you feel about who you are and how unified you feel with the rest of the universe. So what we know is that this tendency affects our perception, and we experience a sense of the spiritual when we allow ourselves to move into that place of unified awareness. All right, so when we perceive things from the cosmic level, we perceive ourselves as a part of the cosmic realm. Okay, if you're feeling lost, it's okay. I'm going to recap and come back, and we'll make sure that everybody at least has something that is making sense before we leave here today. So if we perceive everything from the pond level, we establish ourselves as separate from everything else. We're in perhaps separate. And what does separation do? When we feel separate from other people, we feel fear, isolation, loneliness. We feel depression. All of those things become a part of our feelings. And that's what we want to move out of. We want to allow ourselves to know that that's not the truth of who we are. Our separation is not the truth. We truly are a part of a unified whole. And when we become aware of that perception, we begin to understand that that loneliness, that isolation, is only an idea. It's not the truth. It's only an idea, and it's a temporary idea. So our divine intelligence knows how to connect us as we experience certain feelings and emotions. So this is the key. This is what I want to talk about today, is that in this bright world of possibilities, of adventure that we're all engaging in right now, and especially right now, what an amazing week this is to move into a new generation of political whatever it is. I'm not sure. I just know, I just have great hope. So what we know is that this is a possibility, this is a tendency. And what's really, really important is that each of us is a participant in that tendency. Each of us has an opportunity and also a responsibility to step into that tendency with a belief that creates something positive, that creates something hopeful, that gives us something to move forward with. Because what I know is that this country, this world, this universe is supported by an infinite intelligence that is so wise and so powerful that we can use it. And so let's open the way that we think and the way that we do our work in a way that allows us to direct this divine intelligence in the world in a greater and in a better way. And so in order to make that shift from thinking that we're separate from other things, like separate from the cacti, what happens is we need something that triggers that right part of our brain that makes us feel connected. And some of those things have to do with looking at something beautiful, or feeling absolute unconditional love for someone, or feeling a sense of deep, deep peace. And when that happens, all of a sudden there's a change that takes place, there's a shift. So Denise, show the next slide. Okay, now, this is not what we expected. This is cacti, but it also has this amazing artwork right smack in the middle of it. Go ahead and show the next one. Again, cacti with this beautiful artwork. This is artwork that's done by a man named Chihuly, for those of you who know, he had an exhibit here in Reno some time ago. Now, when we went to the botanical gardens, we expected to see cacti. And around every corner, go ahead and show the next and final slide there. We saw things like this. And what that did, Mel and I just kind of looked at each other and we said, this was a spiritual experience. This was an opportunity for us to be drawn into what we thought was sticky and sharp and barren. And you know how you think about cacti, and this art took us into it. It took us into the flow of what was going on there. And it was such a wake-up call for me, because it made me think, we can do this in everything that feels like a cactus in our world. What feels like a cactus in your world for you? What feels sticky and unapproachable? What feels barren? What feels stark? what feels like you can't connect with it and hug it and love it. And embrace it by filtering it or giving it some sort of way to see it, perhaps with art, perhaps with a sense of looking for compassion for an individual or a situation. I'm right now in my own life, I'm dealing with a situation where there are a few people who are having difficulty understanding a particular concept and are not cooperating. And I'm in charge of this group. And it's really fun. Because I just want to say, stop that, you stupid people. And that's not the solution, because if I do that, I'm making them be like cacti. But what I must do is feel a sense of compassion, to infiltrate their feelings with that beauty, with the art, to see in them the potential, the tendency, the loving beauty that is within them, and to focus on that and not on what they're crabbing about. To know that there's something beautiful and wonderful within them, and that comes from the source. That comes from God. That is their inner, absolute, natural tendency of life. And that's what I want to know about them. So as the cactus paradigm brings us into that awareness, it's a great reminder that every time something comes up for you during the week that appears to be separating you from the universal oneness or separating you from God, ask yourself, what can filter this cacti or cactus, or what can I infuse this situation with so that I can truly see it from the higher perspective, so that I can see it not as another pawn, but from the higher chessboard, from looking above and seeing how it all flows. Because this situation, the one I'm dealing with or the one you're dealing with right now, you know what? Probably a year from now, you won't even remember what it was. And neither will I. And that's exactly the point. When we get so focused on one particular thing and let it suck all our energy out of us, we end up being totally powerless. And what we are seeking truly is to be empowered. So we can't let that happen. Dr. Holmes says God is not only an infinite presence, the Spirit is also an indwelling reality. The silent whisperings of this inner presence come to each of us as a divine revelation, an inner communication of the individual spirit with the oversoul, that vast and invisible presence in which we live, move, and have our being. We are intimately connected with that divine reality. And when we see ourselves and something else as a cactus, we lose touch with that sense of infinite reality. It goes away. So we must find a way to make peace, to make friends with the cacti in our lives. It's all about spirit moving in and through us and through everything else that exists in the universe. God is the macrocosm, and we are the microcosm. And so our consciousness is subject to the consciousness that exists in the world. So every morning when we look at the paper, or when we receive a statement of our bank accounts, or when something from the outside world, comes and says, panic, be in fear, put all your money under your mattress, or any of those things that come to us, it's that indication that there's a cactus out there. And we need to look at this from a different perspective. We need to look at it from the place of what can I do to harmonize with what's happening in the world, to find peace with it, to know that there is a divine reality in me that shows me a way to move through it. And I'm not saying that it's always something that we want to do, or that maybe we thought we ever could do. I'm not going to say it's hard, because it doesn't have to be hard. But I am saying that it may be some challenge that you have never thought that you could take on before. Maybe it's approaching someone or something or situation and talking to someone where you've never been able to bring yourself to do it. Whatever it is, get that sense of empowerment from within. If it feels hard, know that it isn't hard, because you have something from within you that can help move you through it. So know that you have all of that within you. And so today, what we can do is we can begin that dance between that which is that mystical union, that unity, that beautiful, loving presence, and all of the things that we feel separate from in the world, our own individualized expression of who we are, and meld them, bring them together, dance the dance so that we bring ourselves into a place of grace. I swear that's where that word came from, is from that beautiful sense of dancing, the infinite, the divine with the human. Grace, that when those two things come together, the human and the divine, there is grace. And when you hear that word, you see beautiful dancers dancing this beautiful dance across the sky. It's amazing. So we, in our adventure, and we're beginning an adventure. We begin an adventure every day, but I think this particular week is a great adventure. It's a great adventure to open our own hearts to love, to really begin opening our eyes to the beauty that exists in the world. And if we don't see the beauty, look for it. Find it. Find a way to see the beauty in what's going on. Find joy in living. Have some fun. Oh my goodness, laugh. Just roll around and laugh. When we were on vacation, one of the best moments was when we were playing cards with a couple of our friends, and we were just rolling around on the bed laughing. I mean, just laughing, and I don't know what we were laughing at, but it was very much fun. And it lets you just let out all of that stuffiness that's in you. Just let it out. Just play. Enjoy life. Know that there is a sense of peace, a sense of stillness that dwells in our own souls. That it's there, that you can depend on it, that it's something that we all have within us. We were fully dressed, by the way. One of my favorite Buddhist monks who says this: the mind can go in 1,000 directions, but on this beautiful path I walk in peace. With each step, a cool wind blows. With each step, a flower blooms. And what you know about these cacti is that a flower blooms. Look for the flower. And so it is.